Hi, I'm Piper. And this story, it didn't start with betrayal. It started with me being quiet, too quiet, while my sister stole my mother's will, while my brother-in-law smirked behind closed doors. They laughed, lied, and left me with nothing but memories and a locked bedroom door. But that night, something snapped. I didn't just want justice, I poured it. Now tell me, what would you do if the people you trusted glued themselves together in their own shame? It was the kind of night that made everything feel heavier. Rain tapping the windows like it had a grudge, the house unnaturally quiet, too quiet. I sat alone in the living room, curled up on the edge of the couch, lights off, just the flicker from the muted TV playing some old rerun. Not that I was watching, my mind was elsewhere. This wasn't my home, it was my sister's. But after everything, after losing my job, losing him, I didn't have many options. So here I was, crashing in their guest room like a ghost haunting a life I never got to build. My sister said I was welcome, but her husband looked at me like I was squatter's mold. Lately, I felt more like the help than family. Cooking, cleaning, staying quiet, being small. That's the thing about silence. After a while, it starts to hum. And that hum? It had been eating at me for weeks. Then came the sounds. At first, I thought the storm had shifted something upstairs, but the rhythm was off, not natural. Thuds. Giggles. Then a sharp laugh, high and soft, definitely not my sister's. The kind of sound that tells you you're hearing something you're not supposed to. I stared at the ceiling, motionless. My hands clenched into fists before I even realized it. Part of me wanted to plug my ears and pretend I'd heard nothing. Another part, the louder, meaner part, was done pretending. I grabbed my phone and texted my sister. "You okay?" Seconds later, a ding echoed from upstairs. From inside the master bedroom. The kind of betrayal that knocks the wind out of you. That was it. I'd had my suspicions. Too many late nights at the office. Too many glances between them when they didn't know I was watching. But suspicion is one thing. Confirmation. It changes you. 2 nights ago, I saw his tablet open on the kitchen counter. He was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. It lit up right in front of me. Messages, photos. One woman called him daddy, and not in the parental sense. I didn't tell my sister. I couldn't. Not like that. She would have defended him. Love makes smart women stupid. But me? I didn't have love. I had time and spite. So the next day, I drove to Home Depot. I bought a tube of construction-grade concrete gel. Looks like clear lube if you don't read labels. Swapped it into his bedside drawer. No warning, no guilt. I didn't want him hurt. I wanted him humiliated. I wanted karma to show up in a bathrobe and laugh in his face. Tonight, it was showtime. I was mid-sip of my tea when the sound cracked through the ceiling. A deep thud, followed by frantic yelling and what sounded like a grown man shrieking, the kind of sound that tells you nothing up there is going according to plan. I put my cup down slowly, waited a beat. Then came the smoke alarm. A high-pitched wail as if the house itself was embarrassed. I ran upstairs, banging on the bedroom door like I didn't already know. "What's happening? Are you okay? Help us." "The bed! It collapsed! We're stuck!" That was his voice, panicked, high. Then her voice, muffled and horrified. "It's burning! Something sparked!" The bed must have hit a socket. Of course it did. I backed away just in time to hear neighbors shouting from outside, someone yelling they'd called 911. Flashing lights bounced through the windows. Sirens approached. I walked downstairs, sat back on the couch, picked up my tea again, hands steady. A fire truck pulled up, then another. Boots stormed through the front door, axes and hoses and all. One firefighter broke the bedroom door with one hard swing. It swung open to a sight I'll never forget. There they were, my brother-in-law and some half-naked blonde, tangled in broken wood and wires, concrete glue binding them in places no one should ever be glued. His face was twisted in horror and disbelief. Hers was a picture of drunken shame. The fireman froze. Then one just muttered under his breath, "A hell of a way to find out you married the wrong guy." Someone laughed. Someone else gagged. The smell was not pleasant. I stayed quiet in the hallway, just far enough to be the shocked sister-in-law, but close enough to savor every second. He looked at me, then looked away. He knew. Then she stepped out. My sister. Hair tangled, shirt barely covering her. Her eyes searched mine. I braced myself. But she didn't speak. Not a single word. She just stared. Long enough for me to wonder. Did she know? Did she recognize the look in my eyes? Did she smell revenge, thick in the air like the smoke? I couldn't tell. But just when I thought the silence meant gratitude, she raised her phone. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the storm hadn't. The house felt heavier, like every wall remembered what happened the night before. I pulled back the curtains in the guest room and saw two local news vans idling outside, their logos bright and hungry. A camera crew stood across the street, pointing toward the house like it was the scene of a crime. Which, in a way, it was. A group of neighbors had gathered by the mailboxes, heads tilted in the way people do when they're pretending to chat, but really listening for gossip. One of them pointed up at the house. I didn't flinch. I stepped into the hallway, the carpet still damp in places from the firefighters' boots. Somewhere in the kitchen, a spoon clinked against a mug. Loretta was awake. The smell of coffee mixed with something bitter. Burned toast, maybe, or shame. I hesitated. A part of me wanted to walk in and act like none of this was my doing, but I wasn't raised to hide. So I went in. She was standing at the island, phone in hand, eyes red but dry, not a tear in sight. She looked up when I entered but didn't say a word, just stared. Then, I saw the look in your eyes last night. I leaned on the counter. And what look was that? That wasn't shock. That was satisfaction. She wasn't wrong. Are you really accusing me of, what, gluing your husband to a stranger with industrial concrete? She didn't answer right away, just set the phone down gently. You've always hated him. I've always protected you. There's a difference. Loretta let out a small, humorless laugh. You think you're some kind of avenging angel? This isn't high school drama. This is my life. Exactly. And your life includes a man who cheats on you in your own bed. She folded her arms. You don't know the full story. No, I said. But I know enough. She stepped closer. Maybe you saw some texts. Maybe you heard some noises. But what you don't see is how hard he works. What he's done for this family, for our business. That stopped me. Our business? She hesitated, just long enough. What's he got his name on, Loretta? She shook her head. Don't. You let him control the finances, didn't you? Piper. How many accounts are in your name? How many loans? Her silence gave me the answer. My stomach twisted. You're not just defending him because you love him, I whispered. You're defending him because if he goes down, you go down too. She looked away. I didn't do this to hurt you, I said. I did it to wake you up. You always do this, she snapped. You think you know better. You always try to tear down what I build. I try to stop you from building on lies. We stood in silence. Then she turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her phone behind on the counter. I stayed there a moment longer before slipping into the backyard. The garden had always been Mom's favorite place. Roses, tomatoes, basil growing in rusted planters. I knelt down and ran my fingers through the dirt. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing I might have gone too far, or not far enough. I could still hear Mom's voice. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. Truth does. I looked up when I heard the gate creak. It was Mrs. Holcomb, the widow from next door. She brought over clippings from her hydrangea bush, same as she had since before Mom died. She placed the bundle on the step and said without looking at me, Most of us knew about him. People see more than they say. I nodded. Then why didn't anyone speak up? She paused. Because it's easier to live with someone else's secret than start a war over it. After she left, I sat on the porch until the shadows grew longer. When I came back inside, Loretta was gone, but he was there. Reese stood in the foyer like he owned the place, wearing a fresh button-up, no trace of the previous night's chaos. He smiled like a politician at a funeral. Mind if we talk? He asked. Depends. You planning to confess? He chuckled. You know, you're vindictive, but clever, I'll give you that. I folded my arms. You like living here, Piper? My eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means this little stunt of yours. It doesn't end well for anyone. You want to stay? Don't dig deeper. I stepped closer. Is that a threat? He didn't blink. Just advice. You dig too deep, you find things that don't want to be uncovered. Like shady business loans in your wife's name? For the first time, his jaw tightened. I walked away before he could answer. Later that night, Loretta came home. We didn't speak. She went straight upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen, scrolling through half-hearted headlines about local domestic dispute ends in emergency response. At some point, she came back down, grabbed water, then left her phone on the table before heading to the laundry room. I didn't plan to look, but I did. The screen was still on. One message stood out, bold and unread, from a number not saved. She's starting to connect the dots. Handle it. Quietly. My hands froze. I wasn't paranoid. I was targeted. Mid-morning light filtered through the basement window, casting long, dusty beams across old crates and cardboard boxes. I switched on the overhead bulb, felt its hum in my ears, and inhaled the musty air. The basement always smelled like regret. Mom's scent on old quilts, mildew, and that faint hint of paint. I grabbed a rag and started wiping a workbench, trying to clear my head. Sometimes cleaning is better than thinking. I lifted lids, sorted through old costume jewelry, faded photos, my sister's laughter in one image, Mom's apron in another, the years stacked in layers. Then I noticed a wooden box tucked behind a pile of yellowed sheet music. It was locked, marked Archive 2019, its latch rusty. My fingers trembled when I found a screwdriver in the drawer above me. I used it. The lock popped. My heart raced. Inside were documents, tax returns, property deeds, contracts, some signatures in Loretta's name, but the ink felt wrong. I held a deed to a property I'd only known Mom owned. The signature was hers, except her usual flourish was missing. There was a second mortgage, something we never talked about, and a note in fine cursive, "Don't tell Piper, too risky." My stomach knotted. This was more than betrayal. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Woman's voice, quivering. "You're digging so close. Be careful." She hung up before I could ask more. Fear crept in. How many people were watching me? How many kept secrets at my cost? Next, I found a wooden box hidden behind photo albums. Mom's handwriting on envelopes, sent but never opened. "Loretta, I hope you find someone who sees your worth, not what someone wants you to be." Another. "Hearts break softest where they believed love first." I sat on the cold floor, papers in lap, tears behind my eyes. These were warnings I ignored when Mom was alive. Loretta ignored them too. I pushed myself up, trembling. In a photo frame nearby was a key taped behind Mom's portrait. I peeled it off. It fit the small safe in Loretta's closet, one she always claimed held art supplies. I felt my throat tighten. So much was hidden under the quiet, under the smiles. As rain tapped the basement window, I gathered every ledger, every letter, every sign of manipulation. Reese controlling bank accounts, loans under Loretta's name, her isolation from friends. The pattern was ugly. The pieces fit. I closed the box. The last tool in my hand. It was time. I stood, hand on the doorknob, ready to go upstairs. A floorboard creaked. Someone walking above. Silent. Too silent. My heart thudded. Closer. The shadow of a foot passed over the stairwell light. Someone home earlier than expected. I froze. Someone is upstairs. I didn't call out. I stepped out onto the porch and felt the weight of stairs before I even looked up. The yellow police tape still fluttered in the wind, flimsy like the line between public spectacle and private shame. The news vans hadn't left. Neighbors stood in groups, pretending to check their mail, sipping from mugs too empty to be real. I caught whispers. "She brought this circus," one said. "Destroyed her own sister," another muttered behind a phone raised in stealth. Loretta was standing near the steps, arms folded tight, lips pressed like she was holding back a scream or a smile. I couldn't tell which. Her cheeks were red, but not from embarrassment. It was fury. When her phone lifted slightly in her hand, I saw the screen glow, camera open. She was recording me. Just standing there, no words, no warning. They see the mess, not the match that lit it, I whispered to myself. But it didn't matter. Once you're in their story, facts don't stand a chance. By dinner, the judgment had moved indoors. Glenda poked at her peas, Raymond scrolled his phone. Loretta spoke with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed the scene. "You were reckless, Piper," she began, setting her napkin down like it was a courtroom gavel. I held her stare. "You're mad at the explosion, not the gas leak." She pulled up her phone, reading aloud from texts and posts. Poor Loretta, betrayed by her own blood. Some sisters are poison, even when they smile. Her voice cracked slightly. "That's what they're saying." "You saw what he did. You know what he's done," I argued, but her face didn't flinch. "Some truths," she said quietly, "are better buried." "Is that what he told you?" She turned to me with a look I'll never forget, like she pitied me. "No, Piper, that's what life taught me. You just never listened." I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. "Don't mistake silence for peace, or smiles for healing." Loretta didn't answer. Later, I watched from the hallway window as Loretta and Reese stepped into the yard. A neighbor's phone aimed at them. Loretta wiped a tear and leaned into Reese. I could hear her whisper through the cracked window. They needed to see this side. I stood behind the curtain, camera caught in the reflection. I was the ghost in the background, the villain in someone else's script. Inside, Glenda wept over a Bible. Raymond still hadn't spoken. I wondered if maybe silence was their inheritance. I didn't stay still. I followed Loretta down the hallway. She turned. "If you wanted justice, you should have found a quieter way." I didn't blink. "You think this was loud?" "No, Loretta. You've just been asleep too long." "Everyone thinks I'm the fool," she said. "But what you did, that was betrayal." "No. Betrayal is lying to someone while hugging them. I just turned on the lights." She looked past me then, not even at me, like I wasn't even worth the fight. I walked away. Into my room, closed the door, heart pounding but not from fear, from choice. I pulled out the box, the leftover tube of hardened concrete, the photo of Mom, smiling beside me on the porch before cancer took her. Her note, written in that soft script. "Love lifts. Don't forget who you are." I laid them all on the bed. Truth wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It just had to stay. I opened my laptop, created a draft post. Images, documents, audio clips. I was done playing by house rules. This wasn't revenge. It was survival. Just as I was about to hit save, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "You were right. It's worse than I thought. Meet me tonight. Alone." I stared at the screen, pulse quickening. Rain tapped the window. The sun had dipped behind gray clouds. I didn't know whether to be terrified or relieved. The message led me past the edge of the backyard, into the dark where the yard lights didn't reach. The old garden shed still stood behind Dad's forgotten workshop, nearly swallowed by weeds and disrepair. I hesitated at the door. The wood groaned as I pushed it open. Travis was already inside, hood up, shoulders tense, hands buried in the pockets of a faded flannel. I hadn't seen him in years. He used to laugh big, always smelled like sawdust and cheap motor oil. But tonight, he looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. "You came alone?" he asked. I nodded. He pulled a small recorder from his coat. He did it to me, too. Blamed me for the books. Said I misfiled reports. Got me fired before I could talk. He hit play. Reese's voice spilled out, taunting, cruel, unmistakable. "Loretta's just a placeholder. She'd believe I invented gravity if I said it with a straight face." My stomach turned. Travis watched me. "I thought maybe she loved him." "But he's just playing her. She deserves the truth, even if it breaks her." I thanked him, voice low, fingers trembling as I tucked the recorder in my coat. On the walk back, the sky was clear, stars bright like they had no idea what they were shining on. My steps felt heavy. Not from fear, from knowing what had to come next. Loretta's bedroom door was ajar. She sat at the vanity, brushing her hair like she had nothing to lose. I knocked once. "You need to hear something." She didn't turn. "If this is more conspiracy," I held up the phone. "Just listen." The recording played. Reese's laughter echoed through the room. I watched her hands. They stopped mid-motion. Her jaw clenched. For a brief second I saw it. Her armor cracked. Her eyes welled. But the moment passed. She slapped the phone down. "So what? You think that proves anything?" I didn't flinch. "It proves he sees you as disposable. It proves he's using you." Her voice was sharp. "It proves you're obsessed. This is your last chance, Loretta. Walk away before he takes everything." Her gaze cut through me. "He's not the liar. You are." Next morning, she struck first. At breakfast, she stood before the table like a prosecutor. "She's trying to ruin my marriage," she declared. "She's been plotting this for months. She even tried to trap Reese with fake recordings." Glenda sat frozen, eyes fixed on her plate. Raymond took a slow sip of coffee, like that would make him invisible. Reese sat with a practiced expression of hurt, his arm resting gently around Loretta's shoulder. "She's always been jealous," he said, shaking his head. "Even when we got engaged, she said I wasn't good enough." Loretta raised a wedding photo like it was a shield. "This is my truth, not your recordings, not your drama." I looked around the table. My truth didn't matter here. I stood up, calmly, no yelling, no begging. "Believe what you want," I said. But when the cracks split open, don't act surprised. I walked out, head high, but inside, I was unraveling. Back in my room, I stared at the ceiling. I thought it would hurt because she didn't believe me. But that wasn't it. The ache came from knowing she did believe, and chose him anyway. I pulled out one of Mom's journals. Her handwriting had always calmed me. Sometimes the bravest thing, she'd written, is not screaming the truth, but living it when no one listens. I breathed that in, deep. Let it anchor me. I opened my laptop, made a folder. When it all falls apart. Inside, I began compiling everything. Receipts, voicemails, messages, photos. I wasn't going to explode it all just yet. But when the time came, I'd be ready. That night, everything snapped. A crash jolted me from bed. Then a scream, raw and jagged. I ran down the hall, burst into Loretta's room. She sat on the floor, gripping her arm, blood dripping from her wrist. The bed frame had collapsed, splintered wood everywhere. Reese was gone. She looked up, eyes wild. "He ran. I don't know why. He just—" Firefighters arrived before the ambulance. One of them knelt near the broken frame, inspecting the damage. "Ma'am," he whispered to another, "it looks like someone glued under the slats, sabotaged it." I stared at the mess, the blood, the empty space where he'd been. No one saw it coming, but someone definitely set it in motion. I stood in the kitchen doorway, gloves still on, heart thudding like it had a secret. The concrete gel sat on the counter where Reese had placed his lube yesterday. I closed the distance slowly, eyes tracing the label. My hands didn't shake, not yet. I thought about the nights I swallowed insult, the mornings I stacked shame like bricks beside the coffee maker. Mom used to say, "Power isn't loud. It's when you change what they thought unchangeable." I'd repeated that line so many times it burned in my brain. Tonight, I would make it real. When Loretta came in, dressed for dinner, smile practiced, I was already in motion. I replaced the lubricant with gel, smooth motions, every thought steady and cold. Reese wouldn't know until he touched it. Not brutal, but undeniable. The weight of what I was doing settled in my lips. I didn't flinch when Loretta dismissed me. The glue on her vanity would seal more than wood. Dinner smelled like roasted chicken, soft light. Loretta laughed at something Reese said. She brushed hair behind her ear. I ate quietly, all of them wearing masks. I heard her whisper to Reese, loud enough. "You did great tonight." He held her hand under the table. I pictured that smile. I tuned the small radio to a song Mom used to love, soft guitar, harmony. It made me want to cry. But I swallowed, Reminded myself this was the moment. Truth was on my side. Then came the snap. A board breaking, the kind of sound that rips across your bones. Loretta's scream. "What is this? Pull me off!" Resonant, raw. The bed frame split, resin-like gel catching splinters. Smoke alarms' high wail, dust dancing in lamplight. Neighbors pounding on walls and doors. I froze in the doorway upstairs, letting the chaos reach me through the floorboards. Sirens outside, flashing red and blue. Firefighters coming through the front yard. Boots, hoses, heavy gear. I watched them break down the door. Loretta trapped, skin stretched, Reese struggling, but his hands stuck in places he never expected. The gel hardened beyond anything he'd planned. Camera phones lit up windows like stars with stories. I stepped back in shadows. Didn't want to be seen, but I couldn't turn away. Neighbors gathered, murmuring. Glenda passed by, tears streaking makeup. Raymond kept his head low. Loretta cried, but her tears sounded hollow. Reese muttered something about malice and ruined reputation. Loretta echoed, "All for attention." Their voices bounced off walls. Mine stayed quiet. I didn't need to explain. I didn't raise my voice. I just held on to the photo of Mom on my dresser, the one where she was smiling at me in the garden, sun on her face. I touched the hardened gel tube in my bag, felt its cold weight. Truth didn't scream. It stuck. At dawn, someone's camera flashed. A neighbor caught me walking away from the chaos. Loretta looked from a window, her face drained. I didn't plan to be seen, but they will never unsee. Loretta had sent out the invitations 3 days ago. Extended family, neighbors, a few from church. The message sounded sweet. Let's come together, forgive, heal. I showed up at 6:03. She'd already started pouring wine. The dining room table was dressed like a magazine spread. Cloth napkins, her favorite china, even those flickering fake candles she swore were classy. The smell of roasted duck and rosemary potatoes filled the air. She looked up when I entered, grinned like nothing had ever happened. Reese kissed her on the temple, whispered something loud enough for the nearest guests to hear. "You're amazing, babe." I sat across from her, straight-backed. I didn't touch the food. The recording sat in my coat pocket. I could feel the weight of it every time I moved. Funny how heavy a voice could be. Loretta cleared her throat, the kind of dramatic pause she practiced for school assemblies back in high school. "I want to thank y'all for coming tonight," she began. There's been a lot of tension lately, a lot of confusion, but tonight isn't about blame. It's about healing. She picked up a phone, hers, held it up halfway, like a teacher holding a book at story time. "I want to share something," she said. "This recording's been going around, and it's been taken out of context." She played a snippet. I knew the clip. It was the one where Reese said, "Loretta's just a placeholder." Only now, the tone was spliced, the ending muffled, and Loretta's voice came in, edited over. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Families talk in frustration." The room shifted. Whispers floated like pollen. Glenda nodded, her fork paused mid-bite. Raymond looked down at his plate. A cousin across the table tilted her head like she was watching a magician. I felt my throat tighten. It wasn't shock, it was exhaustion. Loretta smiled again, small, rehearsed. "I forgave it. I hope you all can too." And just like that, she tried to rewrite it all. Then the front door creaked. Tawny walked in, coat unzipped, cheeks flushed. She had her phone clutched like it was a badge. "I was given something," she said, calm but firm. "And I think everyone here deserves to hear it." She didn't wait for permission. She hit play. This time, no edits, no muffling. Reese's voice rang out, clear as day. "Loretta's just a placeholder. I keep her around because she believes it." Then came Loretta's own voice, unfiltered. "Just keep it from Piper. She's too nosy." Gasps. Chairs scraped. Someone dropped a fork. Even the background music stopped sounding friendly. Loretta's face froze. Her eyes darted. Reese looked down, jaw clenched. "You're tearing this family apart," Loretta yelled across the table, eyes locked on me. I stood slowly. My voice didn't rise, but every word hit like a stone. No, I'm tearing off the mask that's been choking us for years. She shot back. You always hated me. No, I said. I hated pretending we were something we're not. I hated covering for lies because it made you feel safe. The air cracked with shouting. Reese called me bitter. Glenda begged for calm. Raymond finally spoke. Let her finish. I opened Mom's journal, laid it on the table. She wrote this the year before she passed. Loyalty is only noble when it serves truth, not fear. Aunt Carol sobbed quietly. Neighbors leaned in. Even the cousins who never took sides suddenly looked different. Loretta reached for control again. She's doing this for attention. But the room wasn't on her side anymore. Someone pulled out their phone. Another whispered, I heard that too. An invoice slid across the table. A screenshot was passed from hand to hand. I didn't need to shout. Loretta kept talking, but her words sounded smaller, fainter, like someone yelling into wind. And then, as people started to stand, ready to leave or ask more questions, someone tapped my shoulder. Slipped an envelope under my palm. No name. I opened it. Inside, a folded paper, slightly yellowed, Mom's handwriting. The original draft of her will. Clear as day. I was to inherit part of the business. Co-equal to Loretta. I looked up. Loretta had gone pale. I don't need everyone to believe me, I said quietly, slipping the letter into my coat. Just enough to undo what they thought was settled. Tawny told me they'd been using the guest room. Quiet, tucked away, no windows facing the street. I didn't ask why she knew. Didn't have to. I waited until dusk. Reese's car was parked 2 blocks down. Loretta had a habit of lighting that floral candle when she was expecting him. Apple blossom and some fake sandalwood thing. It was burning. I slipped into the garage where his gym bag was always tossed on the second shelf. The tube was there. Same brand he bragged about at poker nights like it was some trade secret. I took it out and replaced it with the one I'd prepped earlier. Same color, same texture, just different fate. Fast-setting concrete gel, relabeled down to the barcode. Mom once told me, if you're gonna strike, make sure they never forget the echo. I didn't know what she meant back then. Tonight I did. I hid behind the fence by the flower beds. The garden hose still leaked at the nozzle. I heard its slow drip, like a countdown clock. The camera in my hand didn't shake. My hands didn't either. For once. He slipped in through the side door, their usual routine. A low chuckle, ice clinking in glasses, music with too much bass for anyone's age in that house. I saw the living room light dim. Then it went quiet, except for their muffled voices upstairs. Then came the rustling. The bed creaked, then louder. Then it started. Loretta's voice first, high-pitched panic. Wait, what is this? Then Reese. You gotta be kidding me. This isn't right. A thud. Something hit the wall. Maybe him. Maybe panic. Her again, louder this time. I can't move! I heard a chair fall. More thudding. Then a kind of scream I'd never heard from her before. Not pain. Not rage. Shame. Get it off me! She yelled. We're stuck! The gel had hardened in under 6 minutes. I knew the formula. It would bond to skin, fabric, anything porous. Reese cursed under his breath. Loretta whimpered, Don't let anyone see us like this. Too late. Reese tried pulling himself free. I heard the sound of flesh peeling, something tearing. Then his voice, angry, guttural, scared. I swear, if this is Piper. I hit record, not video, just audio. The image wasn't necessary. The sound told the whole story. Neighbors started poking out heads. Someone banged on the front door. Another called out, You all right in there? Then came the sirens. They arrived fast, local station just 2 blocks down. I watched from across the street under a neighbor's oak tree. Red and blue lights spilled across their porch. Someone inside turned on the hallway light. A man in turnout gear kicked in the front door. I heard boots on wood, tools clanking. One guy with bolt cutters, another had a portable saw. I heard a firefighter say, We're gonna need more than shears for this. Another voice, older, muttered, I've seen drunk, I've seen stupid, but this This is new. They wrapped her in a blanket, eyes down. Reese wouldn't even speak. He looked like a man who just got caught trying to rob a church on camera. One neighbor across the street whispered, "Ain't no glue that strong unless someone meant it." I slipped back into my car, pulled the hood over my head. I didn't smile. I didn't cry either. I just breathed. By morning, my phone buzzed so much I had to mute it. Texts from old classmates, aunts, church friends. Gossip spreads fast, but scandal travels on rocket fuel. Someone had posted a soundbite online. Just a few seconds of Loretta yelling, "We're stuck! Call someone!" No faces, no names, but everybody knew. Some messages were support, some concern, a few anonymous threats, but mostly silence. The kind of silence that says, "We know, we just don't want to say it." I backed up everything, recordings, receipts, even a few photos, into a cloud folder. Labeled it, "Just in case." That night, I sat by the window with a cup of chamomile, the kind Mom used to make when storms knocked out the power. The house was quiet, empty, but not lonely. Then came a knock. I didn't expect company. I opened the door slowly. It was her, not Loretta, Reese's wife. She wasn't crying. Her face was calm, steady, like she'd practiced whatever she was about to say. Her voice was low. "Let's talk about what we both lost, and what we could take back." Savannah stood at my door like she had every right to be there. She wasn't shaking. No puffed-up eyes, no anger, just stillness, like someone who's already lived through the worst and didn't come for war. I let her in. The kettle was already warm from earlier, so I made 2 cups of tea and we sat at the kitchen table. That same table where I used to sort my mom's coupons, where Loretta once sat pretending to comfort me after Dad's funeral, where lies often wore their Sunday best. Savannah stirred her tea, said it without blinking. I knew about them for a long time. I didn't react, not because I wasn't surprised, but because something in her voice made me hold still. She continued, "He was sloppy at first, then cruel. I stayed because I was tired, not because I was fooled." We sat for a long while in silence, 2 women bound by a man's carelessness, but stronger for having survived him. No tears, no drama, just knowing. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like a door opening behind me, and I didn't need to look back through it anymore. When Savannah left, she handed me a small flash drive. No words, just a nod. I waited until the next morning to open it. I sat in the same spot Mom used to read her devotionals, watched the sun fill up the walls, then clicked the first file. Reese, over and over. His voice, his charm, slick and hollow, his boasts, his threats. Videos of him laughing about manipulating taxes. Audio of him saying, "She's weak, she won't do anything." He meant me. I could have posted every second, sent it to reporters, uploaded it to social media with a hashtag and popcorn emojis. But my hands didn't move toward the mouse. My eyes moved toward the shelf where Mom's journal still sat. I opened it. The last page was her final letter to me. It read, "Don't spend your life proving who you are to people who already chose not to see. You are free, Piper. Choose it." Savannah's words came back. Sometimes winning is choosing not to play their game. That afternoon, I made an appointment with Attorney Gilmore. The found will was valid, fully legal. No question. Loretta's version, the one she claimed Mom signed in her last days, wouldn't hold. Gilmore asked, "Do you want to contest her claim officially? You'd win." I looked out his office window. Cars, people, a pigeon tearing apart a bag of fast food on the sidewalk. Life didn't stop for anyone's courtroom drama. "I don't want the bakery," I said. "I don't want the house, or the name." Gilmore tilted his head. "You sure?" I nodded. Power isn't possession. It's knowing I could, and still choosing peace. That evening, I met Raymond at the gazebo where he used to take me for ice cream. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe I just saw him clearer. "I was wrong," he said before I even sat down. "Not just about Loretta, about a lot." I didn't let him stumble. "You didn't protect me. You knew something wasn't right, And you stayed quiet. He looked down at his hands. I failed your mom too. I told him I forgave him, not because it erased what he did, but because I needed my peace back more than I needed his guilt. That night, Tawny and I sat outside under the stars with a box of saltines and 2 plastic cups of ginger ale. She told me she'd applied to nursing school. Because of all this? I asked. She laughed. Nah, but surviving it made me realize people need care, not correction. We toasted to that. Next morning, I pulled out an old typewriter Mom gave me when I was 16, wrote a letter to Loretta. No signature, no threat, just one sentence. You no longer live rent-free in my mind. I dropped it in the mailbox. Then I emailed Gilmore, told him not to pursue the will, told him to leave the property with Loretta. Let her live with the hollow win. I started filling out applications for art therapy programs, something I'd walked away from years ago because of money and fear. Some neighbors waved as I walked. Some didn't. Didn't matter. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. That afternoon, I sat on the same bench Mom used to sit on when she read aloud to me. I remembered her voice, steady, strong, sometimes cracking on the hard chapters, but never stopping. My phone buzzed. A message from a New York number. Heard your story. Want to talk memoir? I smiled, whispered into the breeze. Mom, looks like your journals are about to do more than just heal me.